In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to knit step by step this little diaper cover or baby shorts. It's for baby girls and boys between 6 and 9 months, and I made it to match the Lucy baby dress. In the description box below, I'll go ahead and leave you the link to that tutorial. Now, this little diaper cover, like I said, is for 6 to 9 months, but you can easily make it smaller or bigger from 3 to 6 months and up to 12 to 24 months. In the description box below, I'll go ahead and leave you some information on how you can easily make it smaller or bigger, so be sure to check that out. And as always, if you prefer a written pattern, check out my Etsy shop. I'll leave the link to my Etsy shop up here on the right hand side and in the description box below. Thank you so much for your support. Now make sure to comment and let me know if you want me to make a matching little hat or perhaps matching baby booties. I'll gladly go ahead and do that, but make sure to comment. Now, to make the diaper cover along with the little dress, this is the yarn that I used. This is a cotton with bamboo blend, and it's a light number 3. You can also use any DK weight or 8 ply. For the 6 to 9 month size, I used a total of 75 grams, which is about 177 yards or about 162 meters. Depending on the size that you make, you may need less or more. You will also need some ribbon. This ribbon here is 1/4 of an inch, and you're going to need about 18 inches for each leg. Okay, let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe and activate the notifications bell. And remember, at the end of the tutorial, I always leave you the finished measurements, and you can always find gauge information in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. Okay, to begin and knit the diaper cover, I'll be using these 3.5mm circular knitting needles. These are 16-inch long, and I'm using cotton yarn. This is a number 3 weight yarn, but you can also use any DK weight or 8 ply. At the beginning of the video, I showed you the yarn that I'm using, and I told you how much yarn we're going to need for the size that we're making here in this tutorial. Now, I already went ahead and cast on my stitches. I have 100. I used the long tail cast on method to cast on my stitches. In my channel, I already have lots of tutorials where I show how to cast on using the long tail cast on method. So I'll go ahead and reference a tutorial down here in the information box. You can use any method of your choice. Just make sure that it's nice and stretchy. So here to begin, I've cast on 100 stitches. Now to these 100 stitches, I'm going to add 1 extra stitch. This stitch will not count. It's just to join in the round. So I just cast on an extra stitch there. To join in the round, you bring the first stitch that you cast on onto the right needle. Now bring that last stitch that I cast on over that stitch and drop that stitch. Now pull the yarn so that that stitch there closes, and now we're joined, and place a stitch marker here before we continue to mark the beginning of the round. There. Now for the waistband, we're going to knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1 all around. And we're going to do this for a total of 15 rows. So I'm going to start you off here with row 1, and you're going to continue up to row 15. You knit the first stitch, then purl the second stitch. Again, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1 all around. After you finish row 1, you're going to pass the stitch marker and then continue with the same thing. Knit 1, purl 1 all around. And you're going to do this for a total of 15 rows. So go ahead and finish the waistband, make 15 rows, and then I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished the waistband. I did a total of 15 rows. Now this part here, it's measuring about 2 inches, which is about 5 centimeters. Now we're going to continue with the body. So we're going to work this section here. For this section, we're going to make a total of 40 rows. And all you do is just knit in the round every stitch like this. We're going to continue with the stockinette stitch. And at the end of each row, you're going to have 100 stitches. When you finish this row, pass the stitch marker and then continue knitting all around. So go ahead and finish these 40 rows, and then I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished this part. I did a total of 40 rows. I've decided to make 2 short rows here along the back side so that the back is a little bit higher than the front. So to do this, you need to place some stitch markers. I have placed some on this side and some on this side. So we have a total of 100 stitches. Divide that by 2, that's 50 stitches. So I have 50 stitches here for the back. Now for the first short row, I'm going to knit 25. So place a stitch marker. For the second short row, I'm going to knit 15, so place a stitch marker. Between this stitch marker and the next, there's 10 stitches. So there's 10, then a stitch marker, 15, that's 25 stitches. For this other side, same thing. There's 15 stitches here, then a stitch marker, 10 stitches, then a stitch marker. So let me show you how we're going to work these 2 short rows. For this side, I'm going to knit up to the last stitch here, which is 25 stitches. So let me show you. Knit 25. That's 1, 2, 25. Remove that stitch marker, turn your work, slip the first stitch purlwise, pull the yarn over the needle, and you see these 2 stitches there. Now we're going to purl across to this stitch marker. So this is the wrong side. Now purl across up to that other stitch marker. Let me see. Now remove that stitch marker. We're going to turn, slip this stitch purlwise, and wrap the yarn over that needle. Pull the yarn so that that double stitch there forms. And now we're going to knit across to this stitch marker on the other side after the beginning of the row. So here we're going to knit 1, 2, remove that stitch marker, turn your work, slip the first stitch purlwise, pull the yarn over the needle, and now we're going to purl across to this stitch marker on the other side. So that's 1, remove that stitch marker, turn your work, slip the first stitch purlwise, pull the yarn over the needle. Now we're going to knit all around for this next row. So here all you have to do is just knit all around like this. And we're going to resolve the short rows as soon as we get there. I'll show you that. Here's the beginning of the row stitch marker, knit all around. Here's the first short row. So knit these two legs as one, and now continue until you come to the next one. Here's the next one, same thing, knit as one. And continue until you come to the other two on the other side. Okay, here's the first one on this other side. Same thing. Make sure you tighten that stitch and continue until you come to the next one. Now, if you'd rather not do this, then you can always just knit 2 more rows. Here's the second one. There, I'm going to stop 2 stitches before the beginning of the row stitch marker, and I'm going to remove this stitch marker and place it right here. From here on, this is going to be the new beginning of the row stitch marker. So now we're going to make the gusset, which is a little triangle that's right in the middle of the crotch area. So to do this, I already placed my new beginning of the row stitch marker, which I did 2 stitches before finishing this last row where we resolved all of the short rows. So make sure that you do that. So here you're going to count 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Place a stitch marker. From this stitch marker to the next here, I have 46 stitches. Place a stitch marker, 4 stitches, place a stitch marker, and for the second leg here I have 46 stitches as well. So 46 stitches, 46 stitches for this other side, and in between 4 stitches. So make sure that you stop 2 stitches before completing that last row where we resolved the short rows so that you can place the new beginning of the row stitch marker. This is going to be row 1 of the gusset. So to do row 1, the first thing that we need to do is we need to increase at the beginning and at the end. To make the increase, lift up this bar and we're going to make 1 right. Put it onto this needle and knit through the front. This is a make 1 right. Now knit 4, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Make one left. Lift up this bar, put it onto the left needle from back to front, and knit this through the back. There's a little strand there. There. Knit this through the back. Pass the stitch marker, knit 46. That's 1, 46. Pass the stitch marker, make one right, knit this through the front, knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, make one left, lift up the bar, knit this through the back, pass the stitch marker. Now between the stitch markers here you should now have 6, 2, 4, 6 for the front and 6 for the back. Here for the second leg we're going to knit 46. That's 2, 3, 4, 44, 45, 46. This completes row 1 of the gusset. I have a total of 104 stitches at the end of this row. For the back and for the front here between the stitch markers there's 6 stitches. Now for row 2 all you have to do is just knit all around. We do not increase in this row, just knit all around. And at the end of this second row, the gusset, you're going to have 104 stitches as well. Continue, finish row 2 of the gusset. I will meet you at the end. I finished row 2 of the gusset. For this row, I just knit all around. Now for row 3 is an increasing row, so we're going to increase here. So pass your beginning of the row stitch marker. We're going to make one right. So lift up this bar, put it onto the needle from front to back, and knit this through the front. Now knit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make one left, pick up this bar, put it onto the left needle from back to front, and knit this through the back. That's a make one left. Now between the stitch markers here I have 8 stitches. Pass your stitch marker, knit 46. That's 1, 45, 46. Now pass your stitch marker, make one right, knit 6, make one left, there I have 8 stitches between the stitch markers. Now I'm going to knit 46. 1, .46. This completes row 3. At the end of this row, I have a total of 108 stitches. Now for row 4, all you do is just knit all around. Continue, finish row 4. At the end of row 4, you're going to have 108 stitches as well. I will meet you at the end of this row. I finished row 4. For row 4, all I did was just knit all around. I have a total of 108 stitches. Now for row 5, we're going to increase. So make one right, knit 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Make one left. There. Between the stitch markers now you should have 10 stitches. You're going to do the exact same thing here for the back side. And here between this stitch marker and the next, all you do is just knit 46. And this is how we're going to work row 5. At the end of row 5, you're going to have 112 stitches. So knit 46. When you get here, you're going to pass the stitch marker, make one right, knit 8, make one left, pass the stitch marker, then knit 46. And that's how you're going to complete row 5. At the end of row 5, you're going to have 112 stitches, and then you're going to continue with row 6. For row 6, all you do is just knit all around, and at the end of row 6, you're also going to have 112 stitches. So go ahead, finish row 5 and 6. I'll meet you at the end of row 6. I finished row 5 and 6. Row 5 was an increasing row, so we increased at the beginning and at the end. So between the stitch markers here for both the back and the front, there should be 10 stitches between the stitch markers. And then for row 6, you just knit all around. Now for row 7, we're going to increase in the same way. So here, pass your beginning of the row stitch marker, make one right, now knit 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Make one left. Now between stitch markers here you should now have 12 stitches. Here you're going to continue and knit 46. When you get here to the stitches here between the stitch markers, you're going to make one right, knit 10, make one left, pass the stitch marker, then finish here with knit 46. And that's how you're going to complete row 7. At the end of row 7, you're going to have 116 stitches, and then you're going to continue with row 8. For row 8, you just knit all around, and at the end of row 8, you're also going to have 116 stitches. So go ahead and finish row 7 and 8. I'll meet you at the end of row 8. I finished rows 7 and 8. Row 8, I just knit all around and I have a total of 116 stitches. For row 7, we increased and we have 12 stitches between the stitch markers. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Now for row 9, we're going to increase. So same thing here. Make one right, knit 12, 12, make one left, there. Between the stitch markers, you now have 14 stitches. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Pass the stitch marker. Here you're going to knit 46. And when you come to the other set of stitch markers, you're going to pass a stitch marker, make one right, knit 12, make one left, and finish here with knit 46. Pass the stitch marker and then continue for row 10 where you knit all around. And at the end of row 9 and 10, you're going to have 120 stitches. So go ahead, finish row 9 and 10. I'll meet you at the end. I finished rows 9 and 10. For row 9, we increased. At the end of row 9, I had a total of 120 stitches, and between the stitch markers, there were 14 stitches. Then I continue with row 10. For row 10, we knit all around, and I have a total of 120 stitches. Now, this part here is done. What we're going to do next is separate the legs. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove my beginning of the row stitch marker, and I'm going to knit 3. 1, 2, 3. With a yarn needle and some scrap yarn, go ahead and remove the next 8 stitches. We have 2, 4, 6, 8. We're going to leave these stitches here on hold. We're going to close this gap once we finish with the legs. Now, go ahead and remove the next 52 stitches. So remove this stitch marker. Fifty-two. There, I have 52 stitches. This is going to be the second leg. Now place a stitch marker on this side. This is the back side. Place a stitch marker here to mark the side that you're going to start the leg. I'm going to start here, not here. Otherwise it's going to be twisted. Now remove the next 8 stitches. There, we should be left with 52 stitches. Now I'm going to knit the legs in the round using the magic loop technique from here on because these needles here are too long. The stitches are going to be too stretched and it's not going to look good. So I'm going to continue here with the same needle size except that I'm using, these are 32-inch long. And again, I'm going to work the legs in the round using the magic loop technique. And all we're going to do here is just knit in the round. So this is going to be row 1 for the leg. I'm going to continue and knit all around for row 1 of the first leg. I will meet you here at the end to show you what we need to do next. I finished row 1 for the first leg. In this row, I knit all around and I have a total of 52 stitches. Now for row 2, I'm going to purl. For row 3, you're going to knit, and row 4, purl. That's how you're going to work the next 3 rows. So again, for row 2, purl, like this. After you finish row 2, you're going to knit for row 3, and after you finish row 3, you're going to purl for row 4. Continue, finish the next 3 rows in the way that I just told you, and then I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished rows 2, 3, and 4. For row 2, we purled, row 3 knit, row 4 purled. I have 52 stitches. Now for row 5, this is what we're going to do. We're going to yarn over, then knit 2 together. Again, yarn over, knit 2 together. Yarn over, knit 2 together. And this is how you're going to continue for row 5. Yarn over, knit 2 together. I will meet you at the end of row 5. I finished row 5. For row 5, we yarned over, knit 2 together. I finished the row with knit 2 together. At the end of this row, I have 52 stitches. This is just a row that I did so that we can weave a ribbon through the legs, just like this. And it's going to go in and out through this row that we just finished. Now, what we're going to do next is row 6. For row 6, we're going to knit all around. Here's the first stitch. It's the yarn over, so knit that stitch, then knit the next, and so on. So for row 6, you're going to knit. For row 7, you're going to purl. Row 8, knit. Row 9, purl. That's how you're going to continue for the next 4 rows. So again, row 6, knit all around. Row 7, purl. Row 8, knit. Row 9, purl. I'll meet you at the end of row 9. And remember, at the end of each row, you're always going to have 52 stitches. Okay, I finished rows 6, 7, 8, and 9. For row 6, I knit all around, row 7 purled, row 8 knit, row 9 purled. I finished row 9 here. So now for row 10, we're going to cast off our stitches, but what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to cast off with a picot edging, just like this here. So let me show you how that is done. I am going to be using a crochet hook to do this. If you do not know how to crochet, then just go ahead and cast off your stitches in the normal way. You would knit 2 stitches, then bring the first stitch over the second, and then knit the next, bring the first stitch over the second, and so on. If you want to do it like I am, I'm going to be using a 3mm hook, which is half a size smaller than the needle size. So to do this with a crochet hook, I'm going to go into this first stitch as if I'm going to knit. I'm going to pull a loop through like this and drop that knit stitch. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the next stitch. I'm going to grab a loop. I have 2 loops on the hook. Now I'm going to make a crochet slip stitch. So all I do is just bring this through that first loop. There, I've cast off 1 stitch. Now this is where I'm going to make my picot edging. So here I'm going to chain 2. Now I'm going to go like this and through the middle of that second stitch, and I'm going to grab a loop. So let me show you. I'm going to go down to the front loop of that second stitch and through the center of that second stitch, grab a loop, pull it through all of these loops, and that's a slip stitch. And this is what's going to create that little picot stitch right there. Again, we're going to do the same thing for the next 2 stitches. Insert your hook as if to knit, grab a loop, pull it through and drop that stitch. I have a loop on my hook, so now I'm going to make a crochet slip stitch. Next stitch, grab a loop, drop that knit stitch. I have a loop on my hook, make a crochet slip stitch. Now here's where we chain 2, insert the hook through the front loop of the last stitch and through the center of that same stitch, grab a loop and make a crochet slip stitch where you close that picot stitch there. Again, the next 2, you repeat the same thing. Grab a loop, bring this loop through this loop that's on the hook, insert your hook again into the next stitch, grab a loop, and make a crochet slip stitch. Chain 2, insert your hook through the front loop of the last stitch and through the center of the last stitch, grab a loop and close. Again, the next 2 stitches, grab a loop, drop that stitch, make a crochet slip stitch. Next stitch, grab a loop, drop that knit stitch, make a crochet slip stitch, chain 2, insert your hook through the front loop of the last stitch and through the center of the last stitch, and make a crochet slip stitch. And this is how we're going to continue all around, and this is what it looks like. Go ahead and finish casting off your stitches. I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I'm here at the end of the last row. We cast off these stitches here using the picot edging. Now to finish this part, I have the last picot here. You just go here to the beginning and join with a slip stitch like this. Cut your yarn, pass your yarn through this last loop, and the leg is done, and this is how it looks. Now we're going to do the same thing with the second leg. So we're going to go here to the back side, and we're going to transfer the stitches that we left on hold for the second leg onto the knitting needles. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back and show you row 1 for the second leg. Okay, I transferred all of my stitches onto my knitting needles. Now here, we're going to attach the yarn. Make sure you leave a nice long tail because we're going to use this to close the gap here between the legs. So to begin here, row 1, all you're going to do is just knit all around. And at the end of row 1, you're going to have 52 stitches, just like this. After you finish row 1, where you knit all around, you're going to purl for row 2, then knit for row 3, purl for row 4. And at the end of each one of those rows, you're going to have 52 stitches as well. Then for row 5, you're going to yarn over, knit 2 together all around, and again, you're going to have 52 stitches at the end of that row. For row 6, you're going to knit, row 7, purl, row 8, knit, row 9, purl, and then for row 10, that is where you're going to cast off with a crochet hook or in the normal way, and that's how you're going to continue for the second leg. It's done exactly in the same way how I showed you with the first leg. So go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back and show you how we're going to close the gap between the legs. I finished the second leg. I did it exactly in the same way how I showed you here with the first leg. It's done exactly in the same way. So this part here is done. This is the front. Now we're going to close this gap between the legs. So to do this, turn this to the wrong side. Transfer these stitches, the 8 stitches for the front and the 8 stitches for the back, onto your knitting needles. I'm going to use these needles here. Find the tail end for the second leg, this tail end here, this long tail end that we left here. So we're going to turn this like this so that it sits on the right side, right there. And now we're going to transfer these stitches onto the knitting needles. There, I have 8 stitches. Remove the scrap yarn, turn this so the needles are facing to the right. Here's that tail end. Before we continue, I'm going to join this stitch with the next one here, or you can do this at the end. So with the yarn needle, we're going to join. The tail end is on this side, so I'm going to go through this stitch here and this stitch here. Again, you can do this at the end. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. The important thing is that that gap right there closes. If it still remains after we close, you can always come back and play around with the stitches and do that. Remove the yarn needle. Now with the third needle, this is a 3 needle bind off. So to do this, we're going to knit 2 together. Knit 2 together the next 2 stitches. Now bring this first stitch over the second. Knit 2 together the next 2. Bring this first stitch over the second. And do this to the end. Now pass your yarn through this last loop. This part here is done. See how this side here has no gap? Perfect. Now we're going to do the same thing with this side. So with your yarn needle, there's no right or wrong way of doing this. This is how I do it. So I'm going to go here to the center, through the center here, and join. There. And now I can join these 2 stitches here. Like this. Let's see. Yeah, I think that looks better. And I can do the same thing here with this stitch here. Let's see. Yes, that's fine. That looks pretty good. So now just tie a knot here so that these stitches don't open. And now just hide your ends. And this part here is done. It's closed. Let's turn this to the right side. Yes, that looks pretty good. So the diaper cover is all done. This is the front, and this is the back. And that's what it looks like. I'm going to take some measurements and then I'll come back and show you the finished diaper cover. Here's the finished diaper cover to match the Lucy baby dress. These are the legs. This is the back side and the front. Now here around the legs, all I did was just weave a ribbon. This is about 18 inches or about 46 centimeters long. You're going to need 2 exact pieces. It's enough to go around the leg and then just tie a little bow here in the center. This is the ribbon that I'm using. It's 1/4 of an inch or 0.6 centimeters. You're going to need, like I said, about 18 inches for each leg. It's optional. You can leave it out. That would be up to you. So now let me give you the finished measurements. The total length from the top of the waist to the end here of the leg, it's measuring about 24.5 centimeters, which is about 9.75 inches. From the top of the waist to the middle here of the crotch, it's measuring about 21.5 centimeters, which is about 8.5 inches. Now, the hip measurement, just the top, it's measuring about 24 centimeters, which is about 9.5 inches. The leg length, this part here, it's measuring about 3 centimeters, which is about 1.25 inches. And the leg width, from here to here, right across, it's measuring about 12.5 centimeters, which is about 5 inches. Now, the waist, just the top, it's measuring about 20.5 centimeters, which is about 8 inches. So based on these measurements, this diaper cover is for baby girls and boys between 6 and 9 months old, but you can easily make it smaller or bigger. I'd say from 3 to 6 months and up to 12 to 24 months. Down here in the information box, I'll go ahead and leave you some information on how you can easily adjust the size, so make sure to look there. And as always, if you prefer a written pattern, check out my Etsy shop. Now, as far as yarn, for the 6 to 9 month size, I used a total of 75 grams, which is about 177 yards or 162 meters. Depending on the size that you make, you may need less or more. Okay, so this was today's tutorial. I hope you like it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.